Marx arrived in Berlin in October 1841, the same month as Kierkegaard, so that's interesting that even a biographer might get that wrong, but who knows who's right. And attended Schelling's lectures from November to March, so he stayed longer. And he was more skeptical, viewing them as a retreat from Hegel's rationalism toward mysticism. And so this is a point that Schelling emphasized in his own philosophy, and that was that it's less materialistic in a sense. Hegel's philosophy is considered idealism, but if you think about it from the social construction of reality, you have people that come up with an idea, let's build a building here, and then they actually build the building there, and the building becomes objective reality. It's concrete. In fact, Hegel frequently uses the concept, Begriff, his concept in German, of concrete, which was, he points out, invented by the Romans. It's a really neat substance. You know, you take sand and other material and water, and you mix it all up, and you pour it into a mold. You let it dry, and as you know, it becomes rock solid, depending on the quality of the concrete that you make. I mean, if you look at some countries, they make it the cheapest way possible, and when we have a 6.5 earthquake, which is we've had an 8. What was 2018? Our earthquake, I think, was an 8.1, something like that. But in any case, shook the heck out of this building, by the way. All the tiles in the ceiling kind of went, I don't know, I imagine you weren't here at the time, but the concrete falls down in a lot of those places because they don't make it with the best materials. You look at some of the Roman artifacts and notice they're still there. The Pantheon, for example, is like one of the biggest domes, freestanding domes. What's that mean? Maybe that's not the way you talk about it, but it's got nothing supporting it in the middle. It's all just around the perimeter. However, so Hegel's philosophy and the way, at least in the United States, that we interpret it, is that it's physical stuff, but the abstractions are the ideas that we have, but we can take those ideas and create concrete out of them, and not just metaphorically. We really do make buildings that were just an idea, but now they're there, right? And you might want to tear them down later. When you do, you might get a lot of pushback from people who liked the White House the way it was. Let's face it. However, Schelling really thinks in terms more of a mystical power, which is absolutely intriguing because we think of this still today when we think of the idea that there's something in life or in the world that causes synchronicity, so that the birds end up with the right beaks at the right time of the cycles of the seasons and where they live, so that they're adapted for the right kind of food and things of that sort. Two people in two different places of the world come up with the same idea at the same time. The axial age idea that you have Socrates in Greece, you have the Buddha in India, and you have Confucius in China, all coming up with virtually the same kind of critique of the priesthood class that was the norm, and you end up with this new kind of thinking, all about the same time. And were they connected in some way physically so that they there was communication? It doesn't seem like it. I remember being fascinated reading about the Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, especially the Odyssey, that the 28th different trips that Ulysses makes. They're not separate trips, but they're 28 different incidents, or whatever you want to call it, that keep him from getting home, finally match the kind of animals in the astrology map of India that basically indicate, to at least some analysis, that the stories were actually a way of remembering the different positions of Saturn as it moved. Isn't it Saturn that has a 28-year orbit? Maybe it's I forget which one it was. But it's kind of neat, you know. So the suggestion is that it actually comes from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's like the Greek version of that, to keep track of the planets' rotations, etc. What brings all that stuff together? So, the question is, for political purposes, these kinds of disputes are actually nonsense. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with how you actually set up a government, how you respond to the will of the people. If you can even find out what the will of the people is, maybe you could dictate to the people what their will ought to be. Propaganda is considered an invention of